Namaste.
Namaste, sister.
Very warm welcome in our well of work. Before we start off, could you please introduce yourself to our viewer?
Hi, my name is Joy Hernandez. I'm the Senior Communications and Advocacy Officer of ITUC-Asia Pacific.
So it's really good to have you here as you have been very hectic for 5 days here in Nepal about
Yes.
talking about, let's say this whole week was just about the SDGs, just transition, about the labor market of Nepal. So by just saying when we talk about the just transitions, what do you, as a part of ITUC, how do you understand just transition overall component?
Just transition for the ITUC is largely based on the ILO guidelines for just transition, but also incorporating the principles of that global trade union movement. So the ITUC has developed its own definition of just transition, and it has, I would say, like four main components in its definition. The first one is about securing the lives and futures of workers and their communities in the transition to a low carbon economy. It's about ensuring that their future and livelihoods are protected, particularly those that are affected by climate change, but also by climate policies, because sometimes climate policies could also have detrimental impacts on workers. The second component is ensuring that just transition should co create plans um, uh, by workers and employers and government. So this co-creation must happen with the participation of workers and their trade unions, um, particularly through social dialogue. And this co-creation must guarantee the creation of decent work, guarantee for social protection, reskilling, retraining, as well as job security. And this creation of just transition plans, the co-creation part will not happen without the respect for freedom of association and collective bargaining, without upholding social dialogue in the process. So we have always been saying that there is no just transition when workers are not at the table. So we
Correct.
workers must have a say in the different climate policies that are being formulated by the government. And lastly, um, just transition must also go beyond workers' rights and labor rights. It must also uphold justice,
Right.
intergenerational justice, intragenerational justice, racial justice, gender equity, as well as the rights of indigenous peoples.
Right.
We think that the rights of indigenous peoples must also be considered and respected in the process of the transitions.
Yes, of course. You have just highlighted the major component how the part of just transition ITUC is thinking. As we have quote that no one left behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think is that the same as you have been working within our region, like South Asian or the Asia Pacific region? So how have you seen this part, no one left behind, as a developed country at the context of the developing country? How you have seen the difference, or if there is any difference, if you can highlight on that.
Definitely, there is a huge difference between the situation of workers in developed countries and the situation of workers in developing countries. In the first place, workers in developed countries are more protected, they have job security. And so, when they talk about just transition, it's about what is going to happen to workers that are affected by the transition. For example, when a coal mine or a coal power plant closes down
Right.
because of this transition, the question is what is going to happen to them? In our part of the world, most of the workers don't have job security to begin with. In 3 months, 6 months, they will
Right.
lose their jobs. There is a very high level of flexibility in the labor market that makes it easy for employers to just fire workers and hire new ones. And I think that in the global south, our focus should not just be protecting workers during the process of transition, but also ensuring that workers are also protected in the current situation.
Right.
We have to, this transition to the low carbon economy must have a more holistic type of economic and social transformation that would, I would say, decouple economic growth from labor
Mm-hmm.
exploitation and environmental exploitation. So
True.
it has to be more holistic than just being focused on labor rights. And if we are focused on labor rights, we must also put attention and emphasis on the most vulnerable who
Mm-hmm.
are already behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this,
True.
movement to
Mm.
the low carbon economy is making them further
Yeah.
behind. So it's not about leaving them behind because they are already behind at this
Right.
point.
Yes, that's a very key areas that while we just talk about these issues overall in one basket, that we need to segregate according to the the global side or south or north something, the circumstances that we have been going through. So as you have been quite closely working with the different trade union on this issue, how have you seen the trade union involvement in these very important issues, especially in our part of the world?
I think the involvement of trade unions on the issue of just transition is becoming more and more popular. Like
Mm-hmm.
it has increased, I would say, over the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
particularly. There was actually one
Mm-hmm.
question to me when I visited Finland, for the program is about exchanges on just transition, and one question to me was that several years ago, trade unions in Asia and the Pacific are not interested to work on this topic.
Right, right.
Why? They're
Mm,
saying, why are you imposing these issues on us when we have other issues
mm,
that are more prioritized by our trade
mm.
unions? Why do you think the trade unions in Asia Pacific are now working on this issue? So my response to them was that indeed, there are many other issues that we need to focus
Mm-hmm.
on. We have issues on wages. We have issues on respect for freedom of
Yeah.
association and collective bargaining. Trade unions are always under attack. We
Mm,
have issues with respect to our democracies. But why are now they taking on this issue? It's because huge players
mm-hmm.
in the international community are also very much becoming active on the
Mm,
issue of just transition,
right.
particularly the international financial institutions. And they basically dictate their agenda
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to just transition.
Right, right.
And such type of agenda does not recognize the importance of labor rights. It does not recognize the importance of the role of trade unions in the process.
Mm-hmm.
If they are going to be the ones who will dictate the just transition agenda
Yeah.
of a particular country, we have no choice but to
Mm-hmm.
also take action and make sure that we are part of the process, that we are able to raise our voices and our demands for just transition.
That's true. That's true. Now the this issues has to be the mainstreaming of the trade union issues. Rest of the ways, if you say about the decent job or the CBA issues, this is also one of the key areas that all trade
Mm-hmm.
union must focus on. Yes, of course, as we talk about a little bit more to understand in deeper about the just transition, as we had 2 more days talking about the 17 goals of SDGs, right?
Yes.
So, yes, what exactly, uh, why SDGs? Yeah, of course, it's important as we know, but how have you seen this is important SDGs goals 17, all 17s are very important within a trade union movement or the labor market, the workers right who have been working on that.
One of the things that we discussed on our workshop related to
Mm-hmm.
the SDGs is why SDGs is a trade union issue.
Right.
As I said, trade unions are working on so many issues.
Issue.
Why do we have to add one more?
Right.
But I think SDGs is very much aligned to what trade unions are already doing. For example, our focus SDG, which is SDG 8,
Mm.
is about decent work and economic growth.
Right.
And this is basically something that trade unions are already fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
I think SDGs could be one opportunity and one space for trade unions to also put forward their
Yeah.
demands, and to make sure that they are part of the development processes. Because in most cases, development is also being captured by corporations and
Mm-hmm.
private sector, and we do not want that to happen. Again, we do not want them to dictate the agenda of development.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to recapture and reclaim the type of development that we want, trade unions must be there in this types of conversations and discussions and policy making
Yeah.
when it comes to development.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, there are many other goals that are very much close to what we are doing,
Doing
not
right.
just SDG 8.
Mm-hmm.
SDG 1 is very much linked to SDG 8 because without jobs, how can we eliminate
Eliminate
poverty?
poverty, right?
Trade unions are also working a lot on social
Mm-hmm.
protection, which is key in
Mm-hmm.
eradicating poverty. We have been fighting within the trade union movement gender equality as
Right.
well. You know, freedom from
Mm-hmm.
harassment and
Mm.
violence in the world of work. But at the same time, we are also, again, we mentioned earlier, climate
Yeah.
justice and just
Mm-hmm.
transition, which is goal number 13,
Yeah.
and many more.
Yeah.
And in terms of the implementation of SDGs under Goal 17, we want social dialogue to be also there as a means of
Yeah.
implementation of the SDGs. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about putting another burden on trade
Mm-hmm.
unions when it comes to their work,
Yeah. It's
but
part of the work.
recognizing that what we are already doing contribute
Mm.
to the realization of the SDGs.
Yes, of course. That is a part of the regular work, because whatever the goals that we have set, or the SDG has set 17, that is somehow, it is just somehow, it's like a cross-cutting issue. It's like a
Yes.
poverty. It has been always the issues of the trade union. That's why. So yes, of course, the 4 days are different talking about these two. So how did you find the trade union here, the involvement in these major issues?
Trade unions I think are very much open
Mm-hmm.
and committed to advancing both just transition as well as accelerating the sustainable development goals. I think there has been a high level of understanding and realization that yes, we must work on these
Mm-hmm.
particular issues. I think this is also an opportunity for
Right.
trade unions to also unite
Mm-hmm.
on these particular issues so that when they advocate
Right.
towards different institutions, their collective position would have a better impact if
Mm-hmm.
they come together with one position on these particular issues.
Yes, true. As you have been saying, the very major highlights about that, why these are issues that we have to take in our day-to-day life. So, what's your key message, right? As you have been working quite closely in these issues from the ITUC side. So, what is your message for our viewers or the trade unions here working on it?
No, my message is very simple. Trade unions, I believe, are must play a very
Yeah.
important role when it comes to not only labor rights and labor policies. We must also play an important role when it comes to climate policies because
Mm-hmm.
they also affect workers. We must also play a role in development policies because we are also
Mm-hmm.
development actors.
Right.
And enhancing our capacities on this particular issue would be very useful in increasing also the profile of trade unions and being more recognized,
Mm-hmm.
if not by the government, at least by other institutions that work on these particular
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Yes. So thank you very much for being here, and then just having participating in this debate and then discussion. It was really, we, on behalf of our publicity department, we would like to thank you for this your time.
No,
Thank you
thank
so
you so
much.
much for this
Yeah.
opportunity.
Thank you.